morning, students. In the last class, we have discussed the in-text questions of 6.1. Now let us discuss about the nutrition little in detail. Okay, we are going to discuss first about autotrophic nutrition, followed by some activities, followed by we are going to learn about heterotrophic nutrition. Nutrition is the process of intake of food from the outer environment that we have already learned. But by the process of nutrition, what the organism is going to get? The organism is going to get food. Food is the source of energy and materials. Why energy is needed? Why energy is needed? Energy is needed to maintain a state of order. A state of order in the body. Energy is needed to maintain a state of order in the body. And what about materials? Why materials are needed? Materials are needed to grow, develop, and to synthesize. Proteins like molecules that are involved in various functions and structures. So energy is needed to maintain a state of order in the body, and materials are needed to grow, develop, and to synthesize protein like molecules in the body. And food is the source of both energy and materials. Food is the source of both energy and materials. Right, food is the source of energy and materials. This general requirement of energy and materials, the general requirement of, so all organisms have got this general requirement of energy and materials because they need energy to maintain state of order. They need materials for their growth, development, and for synthesis of various materials or various molecules. So, the general requirement of energy and materials is fulfilled in different ways in different organisms because all organisms are not same. Different organisms are having different structures. So, the general requirement of energy and materials. General requirement of energy and materials is fulfilled in different ways in different organisms. And the broad ways are autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. The organisms that carry out autotrophic nutrition are called autotrophs, and the organisms that carry out heterotrophic nutrition are called heterotrophs. So, what do autotrophs take as their food, and what do heterotrophs take as their food? And what is the source of food for autotrophs, and what is the source of food for heterotrophs? Autotrophs take simpler materials, simpler substances as their food. The simpler substances like CO2 and water. And the CO2 and water they obtain from inorganic sources. Inorganic sources means not from living things. CO2 they take from environment, from atmosphere. Water they take from the hydrosphere, which is present in the lithosphere, etc. Totally, the water is available. What is not available from other organisms, or CO2 is not available from other organisms. Instead, they are made available for the autotrophs from inorganic sources. Inorganic sources means not from living organisms, from the other, non-living sources. Right. And heterotrophs, they take complex food, and the source of their complex food is other organisms. Heterotrophs, they take complex food materials, and the source of the food is obtained from organic sources, that is plants, which are autotrophs, and plant dependent animals. Thus, if heterotrophs have to survive, plants are needed and plant dependent animals are needed. So directly or indirectly, heterotroph survival is dependent on autotrophs. The survival of heterotrophs, it depends either directly or indirectly on autotrophs, because the source of their food is autotrophs or autotroph dependent other heterotrophs. Coming to autotrophic nutrition. Okay, but before going that, what is the fate of the food that is obtained by autotrophs and the food that is obtained by heterotrophs? The food that is obtained by autotrophs, CO2 and H2O, they will get combined and glucose is formed in a process of photosynthesis. Means these are simpler molecules, so they will get combined, and a little complex molecule that can be utilized for the biological activities is synthesized. Complex food that is taken by the heterotrophs will be broken down into simpler materials, simpler molecules or materials, by using special substances called biocatalysts. These biocatalysts are also called enzymes. So this complex food that is taken by the heterotrophs is broken down into simpler materials using biocatalysts or enzymes. Okay. Let us discuss about the autotrophic nutrition in detail. Autotrophic nutrition. What is autotrophic nutrition? In autotrophs, carbon and energy requirements, they are met by the process of photosynthesis. Carbon and energy requirements are fulfilled by photosynthesis. What is photosynthesis? The process of taking the substances, the simpler substances like CO2 and water, and using them in the production of stored forms of energy in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll by the green colored plants and green colored pigment containing other organisms is known as photosynthesis. It is complex. So let us make it simplified. the process of synthesis of stored forms of energy by using the simpler food substances like CO2 and H2O in the presence of chlorophyll and sunlight is known as photosynthesis. It is known as photosynthesis. Whatever the stored forms of energy that are synthesized, generally they are carbohydrates. And these carbohydrates, they are utilized to some extent. Remaining carbohydrates are stored in a special form in plants in the same way from the digested materials. Even in heterotrophs also, the stored form of carbohydrate is there, that is stored in other form in the animals or in heterotrophs. The stored form of carbohydrates in plants is starch, and the stored form of carbohydrates in animals is glycogen. What is photosynthesis first? The process of synthesizing the stored forms of energy. Synthesizing the stored forms of energy. Using CO2 and H2O in the presence of chlorophyll and sunlight. Is known as photosynthesis. The stored form of carbohydrate in plants. The stored form of carbohydrates in plants is starch. The stored form of carbohydrate the stored form of carbohydrates in plants is called starch. In animals, it is glycogen. The stored form of carbohydrates in animal is called glycogen. So only glycogen is called animal starch. Animal starch. Now let us discuss the events of photosynthesis. In photosynthesis, what happens? Carbon dioxide and water are combined in the presence of chlorophyll and sunlight, and glucose is synthesized. But does it take place in a direct way or in stepwise manner? In photosynthesis, there are totally 3 events. They are absorption of light energy, then conversion of light energy into chemical energy, conversion of light energy into chemical energy, and splitting water into oxygen and hydrogen. Next, third event, reduction of carbon dioxide into carbohydrates. Reduction of carbon dioxide into carbohydrates. Let us understand one by one. Absorption of light energy. Light energy is absorbed by chlorophyll. Chlorophyll. It captures the light energy, and this light energy is converted into chemical energy. What is that chemical energy? ATP and NADPH. These are the forms of chemical energy using which water will be split into. This is called photolysis of water. Using light energy, the water is broken down. That is called photolysis. Using light energy, if something is broken down, that is photolysis. Photolysis of water into oxygen and hydrogen. And adding hydrogen to anything is called reduction. So adding hydrogens make the CO2 into carbohydrate. So 6 CO2 plus 12 H2O gives C6H12O6 plus 6 H2O, right? Sorry. And 6 O2. 6 CO2 plus 12 H2O gives C6H12O6 plus 6 H2O and 6 O2. In this, sunlight and chlorophyll both are involved. Sunlight and chlorophyll both are involved. Right. These three steps may take place continuously in some plants, means one after the another immediately they take place. In some plants, they take place with a gap. For example, if you take desert plants, in desert plants, CO2 can be taken in by the desert plant only during the night time, because CO2 can be taken in through stomata. Stomata, if they are kept open in desert plants during the daytime, more transpiration takes place, which causes loss of water in them. As already desert plants are living in water deprived condition. If that water is lost, they will die. So night time only the stomata open and CO2 will be taken in. And this CO2 is unstable, so it is converted into an intermediate form. And on this intermediate form of CO2 during the daytime, the light energy will be acting and the carbohydrates are synthesized. That is how in desert plants with a gap, these steps are taking place with one after the another, but not one after the another immediately. Right. Where the chlorophyll is present? Chlorophyll is present in the green dots. If you take the leaf and cut its cross section, you can see the green dots under the microscope. These green dots are called chloroplasts. In class 9 you have learned already. Chloroplasts are a type of plastids that contain green color pigments, so only they are called chloroplasts. So in the next class we will learn how to prove chlorophyll is essential for photosynthesis. Thank you.